what you did, you little jerk.
What's going on, Jerk Faces? Here's another episode of the Circle of Jerks podcast. We got some new guests. We got new guest Todd, returning guest Matt, and we're going to be talking about some really fun topics today. And James, I'll let you facilitate the discussion. It's something we do around here. The person that brings on the guest, they get to kind of lead the discussion. That's James this time because I'm usually the one that brings on the guest, but not today. So hit it, James.
All right, so I'm really excited to have our boy Todd Armen in the house. Just get in frame a little more. Don't be shy. Okay, so I know Todd from Brazilian Jiu Jitsu back in the day when we used to train at Encino, and that's how he met Matt Wade. But Todd, do you remember meeting these two jerks? It was a while ago, yeah?
Yeah.
It was kind of funny. You were here before. This is not your first time at Robert's Pad.
Mm-hmm.
This is your second time, so
Nope.
I don't think Matt knows the story.
Oh, I don't know the story.
Yeah, what happened?
It's such a good story.
Yeah, you tell me, man. It's so vague in my mind, man. This was like a decade ago. So
A long time ago. What do you remember, Andy?
Just a lot of hugging. A lot of hugging. Mostly Robert's toilet.
Yeah.
So
Okay, we needed some more detail on
I
that.
know,
and
right?
Andy told me I was awesome, so that was...
Okay, no, that's not what I was.
No.
not what I was remembering. But this dude had a little too much to drink that night, right? Just a little, Andy.
yeah, I was having a little too much fun.
Yeah,
Little
and
too
he
much.
was getting intimate with your toilet, Rob.
that he was.
And this is Todd's first time meeting them too. But Todd, being the really great guy he is.
I like to make an impression when I meet people.
Okay, that's a great impression. We'll see what his first impression was. But Todd, first of all, what do you do for a living?
so I'm a physician assistant. I work in the OR. I specifically assist in robotic-assisted surgery. So I'm basically an OR rat, not like a typical PA position where you see patients pre-op, assist intra-op, and then see patients post-op. I'm just in the OR, just the intra-op. So it's
That's
kinda-
awesome. So how long have you been doing this?
Yeah, since about 2007-ish.
Okay,
Yeah.
long time. So he's in healthcare. Him being in healthcare and a good Samaritan, you helped this guy out, right? First day meeting him, took care of this dude. Yeah. You remember that?
That just kind of comes naturally. I don't know if I see somebody in need, and if I know of what to do, then I'll.
Oh, what a sweetheart you are.
I know. Right?
Well, yeah, because that was the first night that I actually met Andy too. Because we
Yeah.
talked about that on the
Yeah,
podcast
yeah.
where I was like, what I went to shake his hand. I'm like, something's not here.
This is interesting. I totally forgot. So he met Andy the same day you met Andy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I didn't realize that.
Wow.
I thought you
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
had known each other
Nope.
beforehand.
No.
Yeah, so
This
it's
is-
a huge reunion.
Andy
Yeah,
had his
yeah,
long
yeah.
hair back then.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
did. I had the whole like man bun.
Samurai.
But I was growing it for a good cause because
Yeah.
I was growing it for to make wigs for cancer.
Oh, there you go.
patients.
Yeah.
There you go. Speaking of Good Samaritan. So anyway, we want to talk a lot about martial arts, jiu-jitsu. We got black belt Matt Wade here. Yours truly. Been training a while too. It's been a lot of fun. And I first want to hear your story on how you got into martial arts. What did you train first? How you eventually got into jiu-jitsu? Why you train?
I'll try to give you the abbreviated version of that because, as kids, I think most of us probably started off with the karate class when you're like 6 years old. I don't know. That's
Taekwondo for me.
Taekwondo.
Me too.
Okay. So my dad encouraged me to take some karate classes, and it was at Northridge Park. I think I was about six or seven. And then the next karate school, Jim Appelian, it was like an Ishinryu karate on Devonshire and Reseda. And then there was kind of a gap. There was a few years where I didn't train or do any martial arts. And then my dad's like, hey, there's this guy named Benny the Jet who's just unbelievable. And, he's got this jet center and there's all these world champions there and you need to go there. So I think I was probably around maybe 9 or 10, something like that. And I started working out there and Benny the Jet had his Ukido-kan style, which was basically like mixed martial arts for back in the day. These guys had some of these legends, like we'll talk about Rick Kahana later, They had multiple black belts, and they would take all that information, kind of pick and choose the things that they liked from each style, and put it together in their own hybrid. So Ukido-kan, like Benny Urquidez, that was his style. Kahana was Kahana-te, hand of Kahana. And so yeah, that was kind of my upbringing with martial arts. And then there was a even bigger gap during junior high, and that time frame where we're all just kind of trying to find ourselves, and had some experiences in junior high, kind of not too bad with street fights or anything, but just enough to kind of like keep my appetite whetted with martial arts and things like that.
So at first you were a striker. You were into striking.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. I mean, karate it's a lot of forms, and you can get trophies this big for fighting an imaginary opponent, and you're wearing a gi, and
Exactly
katas,
right.
and you got that nice snap, and it sounds impressive and everything, but I think it kind of, looking back, it kind of develops a little bit of overconfidence for some kids, maybe because of that. But regardless, good discipline, good foundation. But yeah, that was definitely, the stand-up was kind of like my base initially. So let's see, let's fast forward. So late, I would say late teens, I met this guy named Rick Kahana through a friend of mine from Gold's Gym. This guy, Ted, who was a stunt double for Hulk Hogan.
Hogan.
Everybody gravitated
Wow.
towards Ted. He was just like the big, knowledgeable, really nice guy that would just take you under his wing and teach you how to lift weights properly. And he's like, bro, I gotta introduce you to my sensei. I'm like, oh God, you have a sensei? Like, do you need one? I mean, you're like 265 pounds of solid muscle. And he's like, yeah, there's this guy, Rick Kahana. I call him Kahana Yagi, like Mr. Miyagi.
Clever.
Yes. And
This is the valley.
huh?
This is the valley where Karate Kid was founded.
San Fernando Valley, man.
I think the building is still there. I think I drive by the building. I'm not sure
Yeah.
where it is, but I'm like, that's the Karate Kid apartment building.
It's funny.
Yep.
'Cause, yeah, that's what we talked. We got a little bit into that the last podcast.
Yep, we did.
Yeah, and the little lot next door, it got developed, so it's not there anymore. Yeah.
Neat. I wonder, do they use any of that stuff for this newer
Cobra Kai?
Cobra Kai.
Actually, they did, because in like the later episodes, Daniel and Johnny actually are like driving by past his old apartments. Oh, hold on, I gotta stop by this place, and they go and like look, like this is where I came from.
Yeah,
and
yeah. I remember that.
So
So classic. Yeah, I was kind of thinking about some of those old things, like those old shows, like Kung Fu Theater. Did you guys ever watch that?
Oh, yeah.
No, I haven't seen that.
You're too young. So
Like David Carradine.
David Carradine,
Yeah.
Kung Fu,
I remember that.
American Ninja.
yeah.
I mean, these were highly influential
Yeah.
Of course.
things back in the
Yeah,
day.
Bloodsport and like Chuck Norris movies.
I had the ninja outfit. I would run around in the front yard, climb the trees. I had my shurikens.
Oh yeah,
all that
how
stuff.
happy were you who got your first throwing star?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was so fun.
Not in the house, Todd.
Yeah, right. Yeah, my mom's like, your dresser has all these like little holes in it. Why? I don't know.
Yeah, that was that was a tree outside my house.
Right. So
So back to meeting his sensei.
Kahana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kahana Yagi.
Kahana Yagi, Rick Kahana. So Kahana's father owned a stunt school in Chatsworth, and so of course, Kahana was he was a stuntman. He was a martial artist. He had multiple black belts. He had black belt in judo, traditional Japanese Jiu Jitsu, Taekwondo, Shotokan karate. I feel like I'm missing something here. He just, he was like the epitome of like the mixed martial artist for back in the day, before UFC and MMA was even.
What year was this? 90?
So I was probably 17. Maybe this was like 91ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. A couple years before UFC, yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. So what UFC started 93.
93, yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. So I would train. You've met Jeremy.
Yeah.
He's a good friend of mine that I grew up with. He and I would train with Kahana in the mornings, early in the morning, and then we would he was in the military, so we were training at I don't know, like 5 o'clock or something. in the morning.
500.
Yeah, 500. Excuse me. Military time.
Oh yeah.
Get it out of the way early, and and then go to school, and then do the Gold's Gym thing at night. So we were pretty busy, and we were, just really involved with martial arts and that whole process. And I think the majority of any street fight or street altercation that I got into was right around that time frame, because you're learning all these things and you want to. Does it work? Like,
So tell us
Test
about it.
yourself a little bit.
Is
Yeah.
this-
I don't know. When I met you, you're
Yeah,
such
yeah,
a
I
like
do have
chill
a problem.
dude.
You don't
Such
see
a
the
chill
chip?
dude.
Yeah.
So I was kind of surprised when you told me before you got into all these street fights, but I guess there's a story.
It was training.
Yeah. The funny thing is, Ted, he goes by Thor now, but big Scandinavian guy. A lot of those altercations were when I was hanging out with him. Oddly enough, like you would never think, like, who on earth in their right mind is going to pick a fight with a guy like this? Or he was like a magnet. I don't know. Just people would drink or do whatever they were doing. And there was a place called FM Station in North Hollywood. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. It was kind of like a rockers place. They would have like Eddie Van Halen cover bands and things like that there. And we came outside after one of those shows, and there was a big group of us, and some guy was just beating on some poor helpless dude, like, yeah, it just didn't seem right. I didn't have the background behind it, but it just was obvious, like, big dude, little dude, like, let it go, whatever it was, And the guy's like, a white man doesn't disrespect another white man, and da-da-da-da. So, maybe he was hitting on his girlfriend, or he didn't know, or whatever. And so we were just kind of watching what was going on and just making sure that, like, the guy didn't get killed. And eventually the guy stood up, he turns around, he's looking at somebody, and he's like, well, you got a fucking problem. I can curse on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I try to impose like at least a PG-13, but it's like, fuck it.
yeah, I mean, again, you can just.
No, go ahead.
All
right.
You're fine. You're fine.
So he's looking at somebody, and he's like, yeah, you got a problem. And I look, and I see he's walking towards Ted, of all people, of all the people in the parking lot.
Remind me again how big
Thor.
Ted was.
How big?
How Thor was. How big Thor
Okay,
was.
I want to say 6'3", 6'4",
Damn.
265.
265.
Wait, how tall was this other guy?
He was a pretty good sized dude.
Okay.
He was maybe 240, 230.
Okay.
Stocky. He had like curly hair. Just a big white dude.
Okay.
Yeah. So Ted, being the lookalike, he was a little bit shorter than Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan is probably 6'7" or something like that. But anyways, he's a big guy. So I'm just like amazed. I'm watching this guy with his big gonads walk up to Thor, and they're standing there, and the guy's just amping himself up. He was about to just go, and he was just amping himself up, getting ready to throw, and I'm like, that's my buddy. I'm not gonna let this happen, and I train, so.
And remind me again, at this time, how old were you?
I was probably around 18,
Okay.
17, 18.
Were you like 160?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
You weren't 240 or nothing.
No, I was like half of his size.
Yeah. Okay. All right. This is getting interesting.
Yeah. So it's at night, I wasn't warmed up or anything, and I just cranked him as hard as I could with his all my might with a straight right into his chin. Nice. And there was some blood coming out of his mouth a little bit, but he just looked at me like, you're dead. Like, I'm going to fucking kill you.
Oh, wow.
You are fucking dead. And after I hit him again, I said it was cold, right? So my arm was just like jello. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm not using that arm again.
Oh, wow.
For a while. So I'm like, okay, what's the next best thing? Tie kick, shin to the thigh. So I cranked him on that. Yeah. And he just started walking forward. He was like the fucking Terminator.
The Terminator, dude. Damn.
So, again, I don't know if he was on something or, there's stuff called PCP.
Yeah.
Those guys are
Sounds like
crazy.
dusty.
Man.
Oh, man, yeah.
Because, I can talk about some other experiences where I have cranked on someone and that was it,
Mm-hmm.
like one shot and they're
Yeah,
done.
of course. Especially
And that's
if you get 'em
great
on the
when
chin.
that happens. But and I'll tell you kind of like the collective summary of what I kind of learned about street fights and what works and what doesn't work. Anyway, from my experience. So yeah, he just starts advancing. I'm like, okay, I cranked him with my best right. I cranked him with my best leg kick, and he's still coming at me. So at this point, let's see. I'm trying to remember exactly the details. I think I was
Just get a little closer to the mic.
Sorry, I was
getting
gonna,
good.
I was going to go for another punch,
Yeah.
even though my arm was kind of like singing. Brachial plexus, everything was just kind of, my nervous system was like, whoa, what did you just do? You haven't even warmed up. I started to throw a punch, and I noticed that, he threw a punch. And in boxing, when somebody throws a jab, you can go just out of range and come right back. I was coming right back, but he wasn't respecting it. Like, I knew, like, it was going to turn into, like, a grappling situation at that point.
A headbutt or something.
Yeah. So because of that, because I knew he wasn't respecting the power, I was like, okay, I need to start moving. So I'm doing the footwork, and he's throwing punches, and he's missing, and I'm just moving and moving, and people are cracking up. Like, people are just laughing. They're like, oh my God, he can't hit him. But at the same time, I didn't want to engage. And at that time I was just learning about jiu-jitsu. Like, I think I had Gracie in action. I had like the basic,
Awesome.
just
VHS
the
tapes.
VHS
Oh,
tapes,
wow.
and I was
VHS tapes.
just getting into that. But I had hair that was probably
I still can't imagine that.
from here all the way down.
Longer
to,
than your
to my
former hair,
sacral
dude.
bone.
Yeah. I mean, mine came up to like the small
There's
of
going
my.
to be a picture of it right here.
Yeah. No, he can insert it.
If you send it to me, I'll stick it in.
Okay. So
You probably won't.
And normally I would have it in like bands, like hair bands, like a rope. And any fight I would get into, I would tuck it into my shirt, and it would look like this funky spine from the back, like spinous processes sticking out.
Yeah.
But it made it difficult to grab. Unfortunately, in all the altercations that I had long hair, I never got my hair grabbed. But so it was like out. It was like curly, poofy hair, like flopping around. I'm like, I'm not going to grapple with a guy that wants to kill me and grab my hair. So I'm moving around. I don't know if you ever met Patrick Mccreary. He's a guy, one of my best friends from high school, 6'3". He was really skinny back then, maybe 160 at 6'3". Okay, but big frame, and he was the kind of guy that he had your back. So out of nowhere, he comes running from across the street, and he's got super long hair. I just see this like mane of hair.
Lion King, Mufasa, dude.
And this guy is just rushing it, and he grabs the guy from behind, like grabs his hair like from behind. He's just like, rah! And then Ted jumps in, and like everybody realizes this guy is just like the Terminator. And so everybody, just kind of like jumps on this guy, and we eventually got him to the ground, and I was going nuts. Like Ted had him like in this, WWF like headlock kind of a thing. And I'm like dropping elbows on his kidneys, and it got ugly.
Jeez.
And the guy was just like talking, he's like, hey, this doesn't have anything to do with you guys, as he's like eating all these punches. And, it was wild. I mean, Pat threw a big right punch, and he hit Ted instead of the guy. And Ted's like, you're hitting me, bro. And it was out of control.
Crazy.
Completely out of control.
Was the guy like all bloodied up? Did he get knocked out?
He never got knocked
Okay.
out. He was just messed up.
Oh my
His
gosh.
face was messed up. He was like doing this because I was dropping those elbows. Those 12 to 6 o'clock.
12 to
elbows.
6 illegal elbows.
All
Not
my
illegal on
body
the
weight,
streets.
Yeah, he got worked, but that just goes to show like how tough this guy was, and how you cannot rely on just thinking that you're going to crank somebody with a couple punches and it's done. Yeah. So we ended up like this. The cops came, and we're like, oh fuck, we're busted, and I had blood on my hands, and they're like, did any of you guys hit him? And I'm like, I've got blood on my hands. It's like so obvious. And the most amazing thing about the story is the guy starts telling the cops, he's like, you know what? This has nothing to do with them. He's like, I don't know what he was on, but he was kind of like slurring. He's like, this has nothing to do with them. He basically just like
Let it go.
And I was like, what just happened here?
That's crazy. Maybe he was going through something.
Apparently. So, the moral of that story is, again, don't rely on thinking. In every fight that Mike Tyson ever got into on the street, he broke his hand. right? These are thin bones, and
Yeah.
you spend a lot of time
Yeah.
studying the hand.
Yeah.
Very, very thin bones, and when you learn how to generate a lot of power, and you hit like the diplo of the skull, which is compact bone, spongy bone, compact bone, it's a very protective layer, and it's very easy to break your hand. So,
Oh yeah.
fortunately, I didn't break my hand, but I wasn't able to use that arm after that first shot. So,
You have to rely on something else.
So you think if somebody's about to hit you, maybe kind of go like this, right? Present that hard.
absolutely drop
head
drop
right
your
in there.
chin, right? So
Yeah.
you're not going to get hit in the chin, and let them hit the top of your head.
Take it right on the. If you're gonna take one, take it right on the top of the skull.
Yeah, and that may be the last time that they throw a punch. Of course, it's not going to feel good for you either,
Right,
but
That's better than facial bones
nose,
or nose or.
the zygomatic bone is
Yeah.
thin. Yeah, you can get your cheekbone busted very easily, knocked out from your chin.
Like the orbital bone is pretty, like, you can mess that up too.
Absolutely, it's a thin bone. Yeah.
Even a shot that upsets your vision and you still have to fight.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that was an enlightening experience, needless to say.
Yeah. Any others, man?
Yeah.
Memorable ones. You could
Mhm.
just.
Havasu, Lake Havasu. Again, I'm hanging out with Ted and the gang.
Alcohol involved.
We need to do those little tunes, you know, make those little animation tunes.
Have you guys ever
Oh, the
been out
street
there when
fights.
they have the houseboats and you have to like step on the smaller boats to get to the houseboat?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, because they're already out in the.
Right.
I think you told me this one.
It's packed.
We
There's-
get
you
one.
can't even see the water anymore, right?
Yeah, and so, so we were doing that. We were just, trekking, trying to get to the destination point, and on the way there was there was a drunk guy, and he was again bullying. That's typically my scenario. Either I'm protecting one of my friends, or I don't like to see somebody get bullied. Those are kind of the selective things that I've gotten into with street fights. But so I noticed, okay, this guy's bullying that guy. We just kept going on. We got to the houseboat. A fight broke out there because some guy climbed up. He wasn't supposed to be like on that houseboat. Some dude pushed him off, and when they pushed him off, he went down underneath the water,
Oh,
and we never saw him come up.
Oh,
So it turned into chaos right away. It turned into a riot. They're like, "You fucking, you killed that kid or whatever," and everybody. I mean, it was bad because now we're talking about water and people are trying to drown each other. And so we're
Damn.
like, it's time to get out of here. I mean, of course, we spent some time and watched the girls, do their thing, and all that was fun. But once the riot broke out, we were like back on the path to getting out of there because it was just there's no authority, there's no security, there's
Oh,
nothing.
gee,
It's
it's just
like
water, man.
anarchy.
Oh my God.
Right.
Each man for himself. So so we get back to that same point where I saw that guy kind of bullying someone, and he's like really drunk at this point, and he starts walking up to Ted like this is my boat, and of course he was drunk, so it was easy, and I just same thing, same kind of scenario, like I've got that corner shot, and he's walking up to my friend, and again in my defense, I didn't know if he was going to swing on him or what he was going to do. According to Ted, he was being friendly, but he's like, thanks, little buddy, kind of a thing. But yeah, I mean, I cranked him with a right, and he just, he was, he just got laid out, and he was out, and my friend Pat was like, dude, it was just one shot, that was awesome, and, so sometimes it works out well. And
I would say most of the time it worked out well, but like I think that first scenario, that guy was probably on something. Because I mean, man, if you get hit right here, you'll be out.
I don't know, man. He was a
That was
tough,
crazy.
tough
at least
SOB.
incapacitated at some
You never
point.
know.
Yeah.
You never know about some people.
He was a dangerous guy, dangerous dude. I don't know if it was because of the weight difference discrepancy. I mean, I hit him hard. I don't know. That's all I know.
Damn.
But yeah, so that was another one. Let's see. There's another one at like a Metallica concert. Same sort of situation. Some asshole is just like, I think he was obviously like one of those personalities where like, my shit doesn't stink and get out of my way and like kind of pushing people. And then in the middle of the concert, everybody's trying to enjoy the concert. He just clocks some guy. What? Like the guy that's next to him, and the guy's like, "What the fuck? I didn't even do anything, man." And yeah, and some of his buddies were like retaliating, and they just ran towards him and just kind of like pushed him back. And I'm like, yeah, this is my moment. I can get in and get out quickly. And so while the guy was just kind of like off guard, I wonder how the elbows work, like, how effective are elbows, and I hit him with an elbow, and he turtled up. He just like, put his arm over his head to try to protect his head. And then other people are looking at me like, "Hey, stop beating up that guy!" Like now I'm the villain, so I'm like, I need to get out of this situation. So I just went back to my seat
And enjoyed the concert.
Yeah, I enjoyed the concert, but I was pretty selective about what I got into.
No, that's good, man. You're like a vigilante, You're sticking up for people and stuff. But of course, you'd never be the type to instigate. I mean, I know you. None of us would, right? It's all about self-defense. But the scary thing is that I've never been into a street fight, but just watching clips on the internet, YouTube, World Star. I mean, anything could happen. The guy's friends could jump in, kick you in the back of the head, pull out a knife or something. I mean,
absolutely.
What's your take on street fights now that you're more mature and a little older, just a little older?
Yeah. So my thought back then was like, okay, I'm training. I'm not technically an adult. I want to get this kind of out of my system before I hit adult status, before the stakes are higher, before maybe I have a license, a medical license or whatever, My take is that there's no winning. Like even best case scenario, you kick the guy's ass, maybe on the way down he scratched your eye, or maybe you're getting arrested because of it. Yeah. Maybe you're getting sued because of it, and that's you won the fight, right? So it only gets worse from there. So my take is like, do everything you can to avoid it, and try not to let your ego get.
I would totally agree with that. Street fights scare me because of the street, the concrete.
Yeah.
Have you seen videos of people getting slammed?
Ooh.
People have died,
right,
hitting the back of their head on the concrete.
Absolutely.
Oh, shit.
And as jiu-jitsu guys, when we're comfortable on the ground, still, I don't want the ground anywhere near me. The ground is a weapon that if I'm picked up and put back, it's a rock to the back of my head.
Right.
That scares me.
You're
about
absolutely
street
right.
fights, is the concrete and the curbs,
oftentimes,
and the street and the cars.
Yeah, the list goes on, right? I mean, even with all the grappling stuff that we've learned, I mean, man, people can bite. People can take their fingers and put them in your eyes. I mean, I don't even necessarily want to engage and be that close.
Someone can have a friend like Todd come in with a knife and shank you in the back.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, absolutely, and friends are always going to look out for their buddies, and that's just how it is.
So now, let's just say if it were to happen now, you see someone getting bullied or beaten up, would you kind of like step in, stay out of it, or does it just depend on the moment? Because sometimes you have to, maybe the adrenaline's pumping and this poor little guy is getting his ass whooped, or even worse, a girl is getting beaten up. Right. I mean, is it by the situation?
It's very situational. Yeah, I would just kind of try to assess the big picture and see, I have an idea of what I'm capable of and what I'm not capable of, and how many friends there are and things of that nature, the severity of it. I know it's hard to kind of like assess all those things really quickly, but, I would be just very choosy. But sometimes you just respond. Sometimes you just react, especially like if it's a friend or a loved one or whatever, and you just go. But again, like takeaway stuff. I've seen events where they have like open hand strikes in MMA, and I've seen guys get knocked out with a nice short left hook, open handed. It's effective, and you can do a lot of damage with open hand strikes. So I think when I kind of envision like if I do get into a street situation, what am I going to do? Am I going to use a closed fist like I've always done in the past? I think it's going to be like, JKD style, like a little flick in the eye, if you have to, if that situation warrants it. It's not like you're going to necessarily poke their eye out, but you're going to disrupt them, and it's going to give you a huge advantage. Because let's face it, anything goes, and nobody plays fair. Nobody plays fair.
It's
on
the
the
scary
street.
Part, man.
There's no rules. There's no referee. Right. And that's a privilege or that luxury in the street.
Unless it happens to be another like fellow jiu-jitsu guy, and then he might understand. I mean, most jiu-jitsu guys are cool, so
they're not going to start trouble. Most people that train
most of them. You're right about that. I think Henry Gracie was saying that if he gets into a fight, if he were to get into a fight, he would rather get into a fight with a purple belt than a white belt because he knows the purple belt's more technical, more self-controlled.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, if once you yield, they're more likely to let you go because they're experienced, they're more calm, as opposed to like a spazzy white belt or some douchebag that just trains 2 weeks just to be able to kick someone's ass. So yeah, I mean, most purple belts I know, higher level belts I know, they're cool. You know, it's like I probably wouldn't even get into a fight with any of them. I mean,
That's the most dangerous thing about white belts is they're unpredictable.
yeah, I've gotten injured by some of them. Pisses me off.
Right? And if you get a guy who's 50, 100 pounds heavier
Yeah.
than you, then it's even more dangerous, you know, because they're going to make those explosive movements and they're not predictable movements, right? Like the purple belt or somebody that trains, you know the patterns of what they might be doing, but
Yeah,
somebody that doesn't train is just going to do random things.
definitely.
Well, guys have issues too, and I think the more you train, you work out those issues, you work out that ego. How many of us know we know women that have been hurt by men that are 60, 50 pounds heavier than them, and it's why are you hurting a girl?
Right.
I mean, what do you have to prove by smashing her? I mean, like, I don't it kind of upsets me.
Yeah,
you know, but
for
men
sure.
have those issues.
Absolutely.
And so people that are new to training, novices, they have those issues, and they're signing up to a martial art, and they're new and they're ready to go and they're gung ho, and
I agree.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, I've seen some really bad things with regard to what you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And almost actually gotten shot trying to help. But yeah, it's ugly. It's really ugly when that.
That's why you got to make sure you go to a nice, good, reputable academy. I mean, with a respectable instructor, good atmosphere. I mean, no academy is perfect. There's always going to be a douchebag or a few douchebags, but overall, I mean, like where we train, Gracie Bar, Northridge, it's a good atmosphere, really good atmosphere.
I think
man.
the head instructor sets the tone.
Oh
We-
yeah.
You know, a head instructor who might be a little bit of a douche himself might send that vibe down the line.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that's the kind of vibe that's in that school. I mean, I've been to those schools,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think the head instructor, the leader, sets the tone, and martial arts can be a very respectable, honorable thing if everybody's in on it.
Right.
Mhm.
But
On
if
the
it
same
turns
page.
into a training center where it's like people come and go and we're sparring and just doing random shit to each other, that's
Yeah.
not, you know.
I think in the defense of the martial arts instructor or the gym owner, it's difficult to cater to all the different needs that the clientele would have. Like, there's hobbyists, there's guys that want to compete in MMA, there's professionals that can't afford to mess up their fingers and their wrists and things of that nature.
Right.
And you just kind of have this conglomerate. You just have all these guys training on the mat at the same time.
That's true.
That's a big challenge, right? I mean, can you afford to have your instructors have a devoted class just for those professionals or just for the hobbyists and the competition team? I mean, of course, as they build their clientele, they can start to kind of cater a little bit. But I mean, I would love to see classes where it's literally just like, we're just doing technique, pure technique on this day. You're going to work on your fundamentals. There's going to be maybe a little bit of progressive resistance, but not full resistance. There's going to be a lot of people that would be interested in doing that. Cobrinha does that. And it's amazing. You get so much out of it. But again, that means more class time offerings. It makes it difficult for the owner to be able to
That's
to
true.
pull that off.
And I'm really glad you made that point because we've talked about this a lot. I talk about it with Matt a lot. And I would say the majority of people that train are hobbyists, right? Would you agree? And
Majority, sure.
yeah, majority. And it depends on which academy you go to. Our academy, Crazy Ball, Northridge, Homilo Bahal. Of course, we have lots of hobbyists, but we have lots of really good full-time competitors.
Right.
They go at it, and they do have competition training, which is mainly in the day. They have all levels classes, which is actually a good mix. And then, they have black belt training classes, but it is all mixed together. And I think it's the type of thing, you're right, you can't make everyone happy. Nothing is going to be perfect. But I think once you establish a good overall atmosphere, you'll know who wants to roll hard, who's in it to compete, to train for competition, and who wants to just do it for fun. And you mix and match. You get to know people. So I know, like who is not going to spaz out on me. And if I want to challenge myself, I know who would go all out on me too, just to get that extra grind. You know what I mean?
Right.
So so I wanted to ask you, like, obviously you're a professional, you're a physician assistant, you need your hands, correct? So
Yeah.
how do you label yourself? Hobbyist competitor, that type of thing? And what are some of the challenges of training because you're not in your 20s, you know, and you're in healthcare? Even though you look like it. Shit. You're in better shape than most 20-year-olds, to be honest with you.
Could have fooled me.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are the challenges of you training, you know, being in healthcare
Yeah.
and being a little older?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. There are definite challenges.
All of us, yeah.
Man, it's come to the point where I basically just don't train at academies. I mean, you mentioned that you can kind of pick and choose who you're training with. That's true. Sometimes instructors are just pairing you up.
Yeah, that's true too.
Then you're stuck, right? Now you're maybe grappling with some guy that's, again, 100 or plus pounds more, and he knows less than you, so he's going to do everything he can to level out the playing field. And that's a lot of wear and tear, and to me, it's kind of, there's a lot of unnecessary types of interactions, and I kind of refer to them as like the death matches. Like a lot of people want to have these like death matches with you, and it's like,
Super fights.
dude.
Like the final match of the worlds, that's how I call it.
Yeah, like, bro, I'm not getting paid for this.
Exactly,
And in
right.
fact, if I get injured, that kind of messes up what I do get paid to do.
Yes.
So I just don't have a lot of incentive to, I mean, don't get me wrong, training at academies, like, you get all these different skill levels, age ranges, size differences. You're never going to get a better mix of training than by going to an elite academy, you know, like the one that you guys go to. I think for me, I just kind of have to pick my battles, and if I want to treat it like a marathon and not a sprint, and just kind of keep chipping away a little bit here and there. For me, it's just been better to train at home. You know, as you know, I have a studio in the backyard, and I've got, you know, what is it, about 450 square feet. So I've got some mats and weight equipment and all these things, and you can come over and we can work on specifics and really, like, it's like BJJ lab, you know, you're just like honing in on what you need to work on. Whereas when you go to an academy, it's maybe they're covering a variation of a mount escape that you already know, or something that you don't necessarily really need to, maybe there's something you had in mind that you wanted to work on instead. And it may take weeks before you get to that lesson that he happens to bring up that covers what you wanted to specifically work on. So, and within that time, wear and tear, you know, that's why I give you guys so much credit and props for being able to develop a game where you can weather that storm and deal with all those different personalities and still get your training in and still continue. Like, that has been a big challenge, and I've always found that I'll start to train for a few months in an academy, and then, you know, my game will elevate because it's rigorous training and you're training with elite guys. But inevitably, every time, you know, the neck starts getting more sore than I want it to get. Maybe my wrist is more tweaked than I want it to be. And it starts, you know, affecting my work. And that's kind of where I'm like, I got to kind of draw the line here. I don't want to keep going down that path. I'd rather train less aggressively, less intensely, and maybe not make as much progress. But in the long run, maybe I'm making more progress. So that's kind of been my dilemma. And, you know, people are like, surprised that you can actually kind of keep chipping away and make progress by watching instructional DVDs and just working on stuff with friends, and you can. But you know, if you put the time in, you absolutely are going to make progress.
Yeah. For sure, it's a tough balance, and I've known your situation, and it's always a good time drilling with this guy and Matt. I mean, having that lab, we all have that same mindset. We're all like very eager to learn. We're technical. We help each other out. And I think that's, like, honestly one of the best ways to improve your game. I think both are very important. Ideally, training at that academy, getting your rounds in, you know, learning from these world-class professors, instructors, going with all these different guys.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I try to drill, if I could drill once a week even, but realistically once every 2 to 3 weeks on a weekend. Because I have a few friends that have mats just like you, And, you know, just the other day I was telling you guys, I was drilling for like, training at a buddy's place, 2.5 hours, you know, specific training, sparring, and then the last like 45 minutes just drilling like one position, you know, De La Hiva with the cross grip and just going over scenarios and problem solving, troubleshooting, and your game goes up so much with that. So both are very important. And I know it's tough for you. It sucks because, I mean, I'm in healthcare too. I'm a therapist. I help people recover. If I'm injured, if I broke my hand before, you know, you remember that. And I had a cast on for 4 weeks and then a brace for 2 weeks. And like, I was in school, in grad school. If I were working, if that happens to me now, and it could, because injuries could happen anytime, I'm out of work for 4 weeks, and that's gonna suck, you know.
That's a huge bummer.
And you know, that's the nature of the beast. You know, you sign on that dotted line. There's all these injuries, which is what I want to talk about next. But I know your situation is tough too. You're in the OR, the operating room, right? So you can't really. I mean, if I tweak my hand, or even if I sprain it, I'm okay. I'm not in the OR. I could modify and stuff like that. But I'm sure the stakes are higher for you, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you need to do with your hands, tying knots, suturing. And
Oh yeah, you don't want to mess with that.
yeah, so you know,
Fine motor skills.
fine motor skills for sure. In certain instances, absolutely. And ultimately, just to be comfortable, like if you're on a case that lasts for 4, 5, 6 hours, you just want to be comfortable. You don't want to have like a crazy sore neck. You don't want to be in pain and just be like, man, this sucks.
Or you get like a bad toe hold. How are you going to stand on your feet for 4 hours?
I mean,
How do you explain to the doctor? Oh, sorry, doc. They're going to be like, who we got? Who we got?
yeah,
Yeah.
and they're banking on you.
Yeah.
Like, it's either you or another surgeon sometimes, and
Yeah.
surgeons aren't getting paid what they used to get paid.
They don't mess around, surgeons. They're pretty.
Yeah. So in other words, it's getting more and more difficult for surgeons to find another surgeon to help them out, because that other surgeon is going to make more money seeing patients in his office, doing his own cases. The reimbursement for first assisting is really not great. And unfortunately, these third-party payers kind of just come up with these random numbers, and they don't see what we do. They don't understand like how intricate or how difficult a procedure may be, and they just make this random number like $400 for assisting on that case, or let's give them $500 for that case. And these are surgeons that went to school for 4 years, undergrad, 4 years med school, 3 to 8 years of residency. Hey, they paid their damn dues, and they deserve a little bit more than that. So, yeah, so it is tough. It's challenging.
Yeah, it's great that you're still training on your mats on your own. And this guy is no slouch. I mean, even though you don't train in an academy, dude, he's tough to deal with. And again, you're very technical, cerebral. So
pepper spray.
so it's good drilling. So I mean, I think that's a great idea. To do your own thing at the very least.
Yeah, it's something.
And,
It's something.
it's
At least I
something,
haven't
of
just
course.
completely let it
Yeah.
go. And like we were talking about too, once you kind of understand the principles and mechanics and efficiency, you can troubleshoot certain things, and it doesn't have to be a specific, like there was a specific technique in a book or in a DVD. You can work those things
Yeah.
out, and just based on the principles of what
exactly.
you
Especially
know.
when you get more experience, higher in belt, you'll come up with your own stuff.
Right.
It'll come naturally.
You know what's efficient and what's
exactly.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to see it jiu-jitsu more conceptually as opposed to ABC techniques. It's more of the concept of the four-legged table. Take one leg out. Which leg should go out, and just the concept of things. And
It's
it becomes
huge.
there aren't any specific techniques. It's the concept of the techniques. But
Right.
all those little specific techniques that you drill add up to the
Yeah,
to
you-
your arsenal
you-
and muscle memory, and
Right.
you react. And
No,
see
you
it.
need that initially.
But nothing's always the same. It's everything's always a variation, because his foot's a little different. He's leaning back this time, and you have this sleeve and not this sleeve. But the concept's still the same. Knock him down, take out the base.
Yeah.
Where's the leverage? You feel it. Sometimes I close my eyes and I can feel the sweep
Their
coming better
balance,
than looking.
yeah, where they're
Yeah.
off balance.
And I feel like over time, all the mat hours, you have like sensors on your body where you can feel weight and feel leverage, and you just sense the gravity.
Right. That's the goal. That's you have reached a high level.
But
Danielson.
hey, people are resisting, and
Yeah.
people are strong, and
Yeah,
they're moving
yeah,
too.
yeah.
And where they were 1 second ago, they're not there now. So
Right.
you think you're slow. You're slow. You're tired. You're tired. You die.
And that's a good point. Like we were talking about traditional arts versus like the more modern, like Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and Muay Thai. That's kind of the key distinction. Sometimes people ask, well, like, what's the difference between traditional Japanese Jiu Jitsu and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu? I don't know if you guys have ever trained in a traditional Japanese Jiu Jitsu school. I did for a short period of time, and what I noticed was that, so like I kind of think about training in three main categories. Technique, purely learning just the mechanics of the movements. On the other end of the spectrum, there's the randori, there's the free rolling. And then in between, there's what we refer to as specific training.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that whole specific training component is kind of missing in some of the traditional arts.
Mm-hmm.
Like we would spend time, okay, you're going to block this specific attack, and you're going to do this wrist lock, and you're going to do that throw, and he's going to tap out, whatever. But you never address, like, well, what if he, like you said, changes the trajectory a little bit? What if all those little nuances, you have to have time to work those nuances out during that specific training.
Mm-hmm.
You may figure out some of that stuff during randori, but it's really tough, right? When you guys are just going at it. And it's all kind of a blur anyway, right? Your adrenaline's going, and you're not, unless you're recording your training, which I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I can study it and see, like, oh, that was good, that wasn't good. I need to work on that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I train less, but I try to get the most out of the training.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's good.
But yeah, that's a big missing component. And so that's what I noticed at a traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu school. Like at that time, I would say maybe in terms of skill level, maybe I would give myself like a 4-stripe white belt or maybe a new blue belt or something. And at that level, you could tap out their brown belts. You could tap out their black belts because they're missing. There's all these gaps in their game. They're doing a lot of the techniques that we would see and understand as an armbar, but too much space, or right, like your armbar, you don't want to give the guy any space to pull his elbow out, and they're giving that space. So there's all these like little things that have been developed with that kind of specific training type of mentality.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I think for me, I break it down as drilling, specific training, and then free rolling. I think that's
three
for
broad
me,
categories.
I want to make one little comment about specific training. One kind of specific training that I like, and what I like about specific training is sometimes a specific training where the deck is really stacked against you, where it's like 80% to 20%, and you're that 20%, and you have to escape or defend. And I like that concept because, let's say in self-defense on the street, okay, let's say that chips are stacked against you, and you have 20%. Are you going to give up? No. You're going to go for that 20%. So I like that you should train that 20%, where a guy's on your back and he has a collar and he's 80% to finishing. And it's like, okay, go. And do you just lay there and be like, well, he's got 80% and I just give up? No. You want to find that 20%, open it up to 40%, open it up to 60%, and sweep him, and now you won. From that little window, a little bit of, I like that kind of training where it's stacked up against you, and that kind of takes the ego out of it, because it's like, well, if you lose, you were supposed to lose. But if you don't, then you just learned something, and you should feel good about yourself.
It's like starting in bottom mount or getting
man.
your back taken, and or being.
We've had
stuck in
some
side
pretty
control.
elaborate, crazy specific trainings where it's like, okay, I should really just tap this guy. But if he escapes, good for him. And if I don't tap it, hey, bad for me.
Yeah.
So those are good trainings where it's like, I have 80%. Can I close that 20% and finish it? Or is he going to open up and I'm gonna lose it, and I'm gonna feel stupid because I had 80%.
Yeah.
So good for both.
Good both ways, for sure. You learn how to finish, and of course, you learn how to.
And you're
defend
practicing
and
those
escape.
specific techniques that you described, but with resistance, with a partner who's equally as skilled, who's resisting and changing things up. And how do you return it back to that? How do you get that Kimura grip and get that arm bent again?
Right.
And how do you take it and push it here?
Yeah.
You know, how do you not give up?
And that's kind of
How do you adjust on the fly?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And that's kind of like depth training versus breadth, right? Instead of just accumulating a lot of techniques and not getting really very good at any one, you're deepening your knowledge on a specific scenario.
Yeah.
You know?
And then you just expand.
Yeah, and if you can take that level of depth to every aspect of your game,
exactly.
man,
Then
now you're really got a
Yeah.
solid, well-rounded game.
Yeah. Man, I love this. Lastly, since we're kind of running low on time, I definitely want to talk about injuries. We've been talking about that a lot, me and you. and injury prevention. So let's specifically talk about the spine. For me, I think the scariest injury in jiu-jitsu or any martial art, whatever, is your spine, your neck. I mean, if you break your hand or even if you tear your ACL, you could get it fixed. It'll take time to recover, but you don't want to mess with the spine, the nerves and everything. And so for me, I mean, as you know, I MRI, bulging disc, tingling. I have weakness in this left hand. Scary,
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks because the more I keep training, it's not going to get any better. But I do want to maintain, and I have been maintaining. I've been doing traction therapy and whatnot. But explain to me, I guess, how you deal with injuries or that type of injury. And you kind of had neck issues yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a pretty significant neck injury that I was telling you about that actually stemmed from weightlifting back in the Kahana days, when I was young, and you're getting stronger and you just don't know your limit, so you just keep pushing it until your body tells you that you pushed it too far. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean, so at the time I was like doing stiff-legged deadlifts with 315 pounds for like 6
Oh,
reps.
shit.
My knees hurt just hearing that.
I loved it.
I know,
It was like
Matt,
people-
do
it's an
your knees creak?
Yeah, it's an ego thing. Like, oh my God, he's got 3 plates on each side and he's doing these stiff-legged deadlifts. It feels good to be, strong like that. Does it translate really well to jiu-jitsu, let's say? Probably not so much. At a certain point, there's diminishing returns. Let's put it that way. 300-pound bench press at one point. I deadlifted almost 400 pounds. So what? We train with guys that are strong that it doesn't necessarily translate, right? So,
Yeah, I can tell you.
but anyways, I was doing calf raises. I'm like, my calves are skinny. I got to get big calves. So I'm just going to rack this thing. So I'm racking it. And I'm like, okay, I can rack it. Let's put more weight on there. So I've got they actually have a rack that you
On
put.
your neck, basically.
Well, they have a rack.
The
that
calf
you-
machine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So it's pushing down
Yeah,
on
it's
your
yeah.
shoulders. And then I put this rack onto the rack, which can hold plates. So I put a
Oh,
plate on
man.
there. I just pushed it, and I'm like, oh, I'm barely doing calf raises, but I'm doing it. My calves are gonna get a millimeter bigger. So, I felt something, and I was just like, oh man, that didn't feel right. Okay, I guess that's my limit on calf raising. And since that point, I went to the chiropractor. He did an adjustment. Felt amazing, whatever. But it's there, and it's something that has become more of like a kind of a chronic thing that, it only takes like certain, snapping on the head too much or tweaking on the neck too much, and all of a sudden you're feeling it coming back, kind of an injury. And I was actually, ironically, so that happened, and then, fast forward many years, and I was working with Jeremy on Darce escapes. I would put him in a Darce choke, and we're talking about the depth of learning how to get out of something that's almost locked in, fully locked in, how to develop leverage. Like, we don't have a good resource or a DVD that's going to show us how to get out of this, so let's just figure it out. So it's just the repetition,
Yeah.
literally
Just
just
the wear and tear on the neck.
yeah, just the wear and tear and the repetition of me trying to hold that Darce as hard as I could and feeling like this uncomfortable sensation as he's leveraging and finding good leverage and popping out of it. Eventually, we kind of figured out a good answer for certain scenarios. And then he's like getting excited. He's like, oh, come on, let's do more. And I'm just ignoring my body. That was the problem right there.
That was the sin, right? Ignoring the body.
Yeah.
We all do that.
Got to listen
Yep.
to your body. So I just kept going, and I wanted to help him improve his game, right? So, I want to be a good training partner too. And so I just kept going, and it just felt weird. It just felt like this uncomfortable, like, man, I wish somebody could just get in there and like
Right.
do something to just relieve that tension. So later that night, I had my girlfriend. I think you were there. Yeah, we're at Carl's house. We're watching UFC, and I've got my girlfriend with her little olecranon process digging in my trapezius. And when you have an inflamed area,
You don't
is I
wanna
had
do
to
that.
learn the hard way.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't
No.
increase the blood flow. You don't want to make it worse, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
So I took an area that was inflamed, and I increased the blood flow dramatically. And the next morning, it was like a paralyzing 9 out of 10 pain.
Oh, shit.
I could barely like text my work like I'm not coming in because I can't move, kind of a thing. And it caused nerve root compression. Right, there's very narrow space there. Like those nerve roots that come out, they don't have a lot of room to breathe. So when you inflame all those surrounding tissues, man, you feel it. And I couldn't do a push-up. I had no motor strength in my left arm, and this lasted for weeks, many weeks. Like it did not. And I tried. We talked about like all the
Explain
different
the whole
things.
thing.
Okay. Yeah. So
It's
I mean,
good. It's good.
I went to UCLA to get an injection of some magical experimental drug.
Unicorn piss.
Huh?
Unicorn piss.
Unicorn piss, and it didn't do diddly. It just took time. It took perseverance. It took a lot for me to not want to just follow through and let's just do surgery. Like you're in so much agony, you're in so much pain, you just want to relieve that pain. But I researched it, of course, and read up, and there's such a high percentage of people that can get through herniated type disc situations, nerve root compression. If you persevere, you take your NSAIDs, your anti-inflammatories, you ice it, you do the proper things. You don't keep training like if it's really bad, or you don't keep doing the things that are going to irritate it. There is something to be said about training around injuries. I'm a big fan of that. So it's not. I like the idea of continuing to improve on certain aspects of your game if you have an injury, but you just have to know your limits, and you have to know what's gonna exacerbate an issue. So yeah, it took a lot of time, and so that's another reason why I don't like to necessarily go to academies where guys are just trying to crank on your neck and they don't care about your well-being. Whereas when we train, it's more like, if I injure my training partner, I don't have a training partner anymore. Like, we got to take care of each other.
Yeah.
Okay?
Plus, we're all close friends and stuff. So.
Yeah. So it's more about helping each other improve our games. We're not going to be competing against each other. That's not even an issue. So, so that's kind of my
I
experience.
remember when we spoke on the phone about that, and I picked your brain because of my neck, and you said that ice is very underrated, right? I know, obviously, ice.
Underrated.
Yeah, ice. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's a great thing. People take ice baths, but for some reason, I don't know. I neglect it. I get lazy. I don't do it. But yeah, tell me what you told me last time. I mean, why is it so important, and why is it so effective?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, the temptation for me, for example, when I had that back injury, was dig in there and massage and myofascial trigger point release. That's the opposite of what you
Rub
want
it
to
out.
do.
Yeah.
Right. You're not just going to be able to rub out the inflammation. So,
Rub out the inflammation.
You
It's
wish.
yeah.
I wish it was that easy,
Yeah.
but no.
so yeah, throughout the years of training and just the little tweaks and things here and there, I used to kind of ignore those things and be like, you know what, I'll ice it later. And now I'm much more of a proponent of icing. Is such a huge deal. I mean, anytime I have any little thing that feels funky, I ice it right away. The next day, it's gone. I mean, it's like magic,
Ice plus Motrin, you mentioned, right?
If I need to, I
Yeah.
will, and I'll take the lowest dose possible. So you can go to CVS and get 200 milligrams, these little
Yeah,
pills,
I got some.
and I'll even break a little piece off. And my thought on medications is take the least amount that gives you the desired result. There's no need to really start high. You can always titrate. You can always dial it up. But if you start high, there's nowhere to go.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, and our body, we're healthy. We work out a lot. We're like sponges to these things. So, hey, if one little tiny piece of this tablet's going to do the trick, why do I need to take the whole pill? Right? Because all the side effects and adverse effects go up.
Yeah.
The higher
And why you
dosage.
shouldn't take it every time. I mean, it's hard on your kidneys.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So just use these things sparingly, and
Quick question about icing. How long do you recommend to ice? And do you do it? Is it 20 on, 20 off, 20 on again? Or
Good
is it
question.
Just like,
Yeah.
I always wonder. I always do it until I'm frostbitten or something.
right. Yeah. So yeah, they always talk about 20 on, 20 off. I tend to I go beyond the 20 if I can tolerate it, or I'll make it such that I can tolerate it. in other words, I'll just wrap it up a little bit more with more paper towel or whatever I need to
Yeah.
do so that I'm not getting frostbite. I tend to just try to keep it stays. You know, if it's comfortable, it's going to stay on.
Well, you would say like average like 20, 30 minutes it would
Yeah,
stay on, yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you can put it aside for a little bit and then put it back on when you feel like it's time to do so.
So it's really about an inflammation thing. So it reduces the inflammation, and time when inflammation comes back a little bit, and ice it again, bring it back down, and then until the cycle just starts getting.
Yeah, so a good rule of thumb, a good acronym is RICE. Rest, ice, compression, elevation. And again, I think it's so underutilized.
It is.
Well, this
It
goes
is.
back to
It's
you
so
talking
easy,
about
but it
reducing the
is.
blood flow, not increasing the blood flow. So
Right.
what's the benefit of reducing the blood flow?
So you're you're trying to decrease the inflammation. When you have an injury, your body is trying to bring in all these anti-inflammatory or inflammatory components into that area, and that swelling is what hurts. So if you can do anything to reduce that swelling, like elevate, just gravity, right? So like if you injure your foot, all the blood is kind of gravitating towards that area. You want to
Foot up,
elevate
You
it
wanna
as much as
elevate it.
possible. But if you're at work, maybe that's not feasible,
Exactly.
So it's tough. So rest, ice, compression, elevation. If you get one of those packs, it's got the Velcro where you can put the ice pack in there, wrap it around. Now
So
you've
you
got
get both.
you got the ice and the compression.
Pretty handy.
It's really
or
handy.
an ace bandage if you can, if possible, depending where the injury is. But yeah, good stuff, good information. And like the thing is that Joe Rogan talks about his neck a lot. I think he's kind of stopped training for a while. From what I know, from what I hear, he always talks about his neck injury. And he said he used to go all out, and even when he felt it was tweaked, he had this whole ego thing. And he even admitted himself, he's like, I was dumb, I just kept going. Muay Thai sparring also, people get knocked out, they keep going. It's,
Nice kick to the neck.
yeah, exactly. And he looks back and he says it's stupid, And I remember Boss Rutan, I mention this example all the time. You could Google his name. Boss Rutan arm. Boss Rutan talked about his neck injuries from all the training and wrestling and grappling, and like one of his arms, I think it's his right arm, one of them anyway, shriveled up because of the nerve damage.
Atrophy.
Holy crap.
Yeah. It was like my arm, but his other arm was like 3 times the size, which is his
Wow,
normal
that's
arm.
crazy.
Right.
And so it's so bad, and I think to myself, is it worth it as a hobbyist? You know what I mean? And it's not. So it's all about. Again, I'm more choosy with who I train with now and stuff, and I'm a lighter guy too. I've had years and years of getting stacked by big guys and this and that. I mean, it at the old academy.
Yeah. It's dangerous.
Yeah, and then John McCarthy was on the Joe Rogan podcast too. He said the same thing, and he said that he was teaching a student the darts choke, but John McCarthy was in the darts, and the guy just did it like normally, and then John was like, "Okay, you got the darts," and he said that night he couldn't sleep. He felt pulsating. He felt tingly and an electric sensation, and he got an MRI, and he had to get a fusion. And it's like when he was naming his symptoms, that's exactly what I felt. That scared the crap out of him. I'm like, dude, that's what happened to me, and I have these intrinsic muscle weakness issues. It's hard for me to freaking open up bottles and manipulate like coins with this hand. How ironic, I'm an occupational therapist, you know what I mean? I work with fine motor skills and all that. And so I don't want it to come down to surgery, and thankfully the specialist told me right now I'm okay, but of course he told me I don't recommend jiu-jitsu, and of course I responded that's not a possibility at this point. So I'm trying to be smart. I took 6 weeks off and it sucked, but I'm glad that at least it's not to a point where I need surgery. For me, the traction helps the most. So anyone with a bulging disc, obviously consult with your specialist first, but the traction machine, you pretty much strap your head on this device, you pump it with air, and it'll elevate your neck or kind of stretch out your neck to decompress.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that almost every day. Thankfully, I work at a hospital with physical therapists, so I was using the traction machine at our hospital. I loved it so much I bought my own, a little pricey, but well worth it. And so it's all about maintenance. As I'm getting kind of older, I'm realizing that how important maintenance is. I want to do this for a long time. I don't want to end up with a shriveled arm.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Boss Rutan, but I mean, he's a legend. This is what he did for a living, but
Yeah.
I'm a hobbyist, and so we gotta seriously take care of ourselves. And I think you mentioned lastly, you had a friend that was put in a headlock, rolling around, and you said that he ended up needing surgery, right?
Yeah.
I guess last story. I mean, quickly
Okay.
explain that one so that all my fellow jiu-jitsu practitioners could could kind of learn from
Yeah.
from this incident.
Yeah. Yeah, I know neck is like the number one thing. What is it? Stephen Whittier. He always says something to the effect like either if you're a grappler, you either have a bad neck or you're gonna have.
You're
a bad
gonna
neck.
have a bad neck. Yeah.
Like it's inevitable. And
Yeah. Oh.
okay, so
We're all like, oh.
as long as you go in knowing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Patrick, my good buddy, 6'3".
Yeah. Okay, that was him. All right.
That was him. Yeah. So he was training at Helson's in Hawaii. He lived in Hawaii. And he's a real smart guy, and he's an athlete. He's athletic, and he's always game. And I guess he was just playing around with a guy that was a bit bigger or whatever. And the guy,
big boys out there.
big boys, they like to go for big moves, like Josh Barnett style move. And this is
Yeah.
what it was. It was that
Neck cranks.
Keisakatami.
Kisakatami.
Okay, and so he got into this bad position, and he said, "I'm just going to tell myself I'm just going to relax, and I'm just going to weather the storm." And the guy kept cranking, and he refused to tap. And he did what he told himself to do. He relaxed, but it was
He did escape, right? You told me he escaped.
he got out, and he
won.
ended up armbarring the guy,
Yeah.
but he messed up his neck.
Uh-huh.
So he spent a lot of time trying to just deal with it and do the conservative methods to get through it. I guess that wasn't enough, and finally he ended up having a ACDF, anterior cervical discectomy with fusion. And
They
so
cut open.
yeah, we made
And-
a little horizontal incision. It's the same incision we do for like a thyroidectomy.
Yeah.
But he's fused, and that's
Yeah.
you guys. If you guys ever do
one
like
neck.
Granby rolls or anything
Yeah.
where you
Inverting. Or,
yeah, inverting, man. That's you need every bit of
Every
flexion that you can get out of your neck to do those movements. So, yeah.
Oh man.
So
the
he's a
fusion,
little
you could even hurt the ones above and below.
the
if you-
adjacent ones,
oh, man.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's an accumulative effect. Yeah. So the
Man,
adjacent,
just from that one incident, that's kind of like what really triggered it.
right.
Jeez.
And so he could have. This is one of those guys that if he had kept training, he would be as high a level as anybody that has a lot of skill and talent. And the stories go on and on.
Yeah,
I mean,
the stories go on and
there's-
on,
There's a
yeah.
guy from another place that I was training at, and a young kid, big goals, big aspirations. I want to get my black belt in BJJ, big educational goals, and a very calm and very calm game. Like he's one of the most relaxed people I've ever rolled with. Even if he doesn't have an answer, or getting smashed, he's still just super calm.
Wow.
And so he's got all the characteristics of somebody that can really take it far. He got suplexed.
Oh.
Oof.
In training?
Yeah, some knucklehead decided he wanted to, and you know how sometimes you don't think that someone is going to go for something crazy.
Yeah,
You just
right,
kind of
yeah,
relax.
Okay,
and
Yeah.
he's got, he's got,
Yeah,
he's got
yeah.
the
You just
wrist-
relax.
Yeah.
He just relaxed, and the guy did a freaking suplex and landed him on his
Oh
neck.
my God.
Oh, jeez.
He hasn't been the same ever. He hasn't gone back to. I mean, we've trained lightly, but it's just not the same.
Wow.
Who are these people that do this?
Did he need surgery?
He didn't have surgery.
Yeah, but
I-
maybe eventually he might, but he's not the same.
Yeah, we're talking
'Cause
like a
some
19-year-old kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some full suplex
Probably
that
got a
been
concussion
training.
too.
Jesus.
Concussion and a neck injury.
Those are
Terrible.
game enders.
Yeah,
so-
yeah.
So yeah,
The
you
injuries, man.
you got to be careful of who
Yeah.
you're training with for sure.
Yeah, for
You know
sure.
what? Honestly, the more and more years we train, now I look back and realize, now I see why Professor didn't roll with everybody. Now I see why the higher guys don't roll with everybody. It's like,
Right.
well, how come he doesn't roll with everybody? No, I know why.
Because they want to keep doing it when they're like Elio Gracie's
Yeah.
age. He was still rolling when he was
Yeah,
in
that's
his
amazing.
80s,
That's what I
90s.
want to do.
And that's
Yeah.
the goal, right?
That's the goal.
We would all love to be able to
Absolutely.
do that, So
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you really quickly a major adjustment I kind of made as I'm getting older, and I want to do this for a long time. I want it to be the marathon, not the sprint. I've actually pulled back the amount of times I train jiu-jitsu per week, but I try to get the most out of it when I do train. But then what I've had to do, because I'm decreasing the jiu-jitsu a little bit, I have to increase something else so I can maintain the physicality to, one, just stay physical and in shape, but also stay physical and ready for the jiu-jitsu training.
Right.
So I've turned to swimming, and I find that is amazing for me because it's low impact, I'm not running on a treadmill. It's not hard on my knees. I can describe what it does for me is what people describe what yoga does for them. I feel elongated. I feel connected to my body. I feel more flexible. I can stretch more. I can touch, put my elbows to the ground and stretch. I mean, all that stuff. And it really helps in between the jiu-jitsu days for recovery and for my cardio and there's a lot of breathing involved in swimming.
Right.
that
Yeah,
you
I've
can
actually
really work
started
on
swimming too. And,
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
I recommend swimming for anybody.
Yeah,
It
and I
is one of
definitely
the
felt
best
like
things you can do.
I feel like my chest has gotten like bigger because like the way I swim and
Yeah.
just like working out different muscles.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
I've done
gonna lose
jiu-jitsu
weight.
for a long time, and
Yeah.
at this point, not much is going to change my body because I'm not doing anything different. But swimming definitely started changing some things, and I'm starting feeling some strengths that I didn't have.
Excellent.
It's good to cross train and condition
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
that's my
Absolutely.
cross train.
Because it doesn't strain the body quite as much
Not
as
at
the other
all.
one, and it also uses up all the muscles, muscles
Yeah.
you don't think you're going to be using.
You stay conditioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
Precisely.
can push yourself, and you can get sore, and,
Yeah.
and I'm pushing myself to learn how to really swim technically, all this. And it's not easy to swim technically.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
Right.
Swimming is one thing, but swim technically,
That's
not
tough.
easy,
Right.
but
Yeah,
it's
no,
another goal, but it's great for cross
Yeah,
training.
because
It's great for
what I
cardio.
found is, I'm definitely more aware about my body and how it moves, like in the water, and you can
Yeah.
feel like, like if I do it like this, if like it feels more draggy, but if I do it like this, then it's like it's a little bit more fluid. And
Yeah.
so
No, it's amazing. Sometimes I
good
try to
stuff.
swim, and I try to swim like, okay, minimal effort. But I'm still moving. I'm like, how am I moving? But I'm minimal effort. But it's, you can play, it's like there's no music, no headphones,
know.
so you're in your own mind.
I know
and-
Tchaikovsky's like third, and then playing in your brain.
Well, anyway, I think it's time now. Man, that was great. It went by
Yeah,
really
it was
fast.
good.
Yeah.
This was a good
yeah,
episode.
It's like perfect. That
So
was
one
awesome.
last quick question I wanted to ask you. I was hoping we were touch on it. And different people have different feelings about supplements and vitamins and stuff. If you're going to give me your top three over-the-counter supplements, vitamins, or oils, or something to add to your diet for reduce inflammation or prevent injury or
Oh,
keep
that's a good
things-
question.
Fish oils, vitamin E.
We'll end it with this
what are your
question.
top three?
Yeah.
Wow, top three. Oh man, if I had to.
I mean, I have a shelf full of stuff. I can't.
See,
give you,
I-
I'd have to give you a top 10.
You're talking to somebody that used to work at VP Discount, when I was a kid, like the vitamins shop. So there's
Yeah.
so many different supplements, and there's
Yeah.
so many things that are beneficial. Can I break it down to like
Sure.
two different things, like
Absolutely.
one for weightlifting and one for
Sure.
like longevity?
Yeah.
So for like weightlifting and CrossFitting or all the extra stuff, or just training in general, creatine.
Okay.
Monohydrate is great for sprints or short bursts of energy. So like like a 1 to 5 rep range, let's say. It's not the best for like the higher rep ranges. And it's probably the most widely studied, researched
Right.
sports medicine
That is
supplement out there. So we know a lot about it. So creatine, and there's different types. Hydrochloride,
Right.
you have to research what works best for you. Beta alanine is great, and they work synergistically together. So 1 + 1 = 3 instead of 1 + 1 = 2. The concept of synergy.
No, it's, yeah.
Makes sense.
It's like a kind of a
Totally.
pharmacology thing. Yeah, so they work really well together. The beta alanine acts as a buffer, so you can do more reps before you start to feel that acidosis in your muscles. So maybe it can give you a little more stamina, maybe with grappling. And then maybe L-citrulline malate. It's a nice vasodilator. So there's a lot of benefits to that. So creatine, beta alanine, L-citrulline malate. And then if we're talking about like joints, joint supplements and things, I like joint Vibrance. I talked to you about it. And it has a whole bunch of different things in it because, there's MSM, there's glucosamine, there's chondroitin, but this supplement has all those things in it and then some. So if you were to take that, and I really like shark cartilage, when I was at my most flexible, like I could hit the splits without even warming up.
Wow.
I was taking a lot of shark cartilage. So it's anecdotal, but it for me it worked.
I'm about it.
Okay, and so so joint Vibrance, that's an awesome one. You can take a powder, you can take the tablets, whichever one you want. You don't have to take the recommended dose. You can start low, like we talked about, and work your way up. And it's something that takes time to build in your system. But it's like, you take calcium for your bones. Why not take something for your connective tissue? Something that,
Yeah.
right?
It's always the connective tissues that get injured anyway.
Yeah.
It's not like the muscle. It's where the muscle connected.
Right.
Yeah.
skeletal muscle is very vascular. It heals a lot faster than connective tissue, which is relatively avascular. So, yeah, definitely, those are some beneficial ones. I'm sure I could go on, but you want to kind of like those are like my
That's
favorite.
awesome.
Yeah, the short
Thank
list,
you.
the short
Those are my
list.
That was awesome. We'll expand upon that another time for sure. Well, thank you again, Todd. That was pretty awesome, and especially you jiu-jitsu practitioners. I know you'll enjoy this one, and even if you're not, it's good times anyway, right?
Yeah. No,
Educational, inspiring.
I learned a lot, and just knowing, I'm not into jiu-jitsu, but I do compete in other things, and taking that same mentality into other forms. It's like, oh yeah, I can connect in that way. Where it's like, I'm getting to that point where it's like I want to compete and be better than everyone, but I also have to be smart about how I'm using my body to do those things. So I learned a lot of good stuff today.
That's right. Glad to
All
hear.
right. Awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
That's a wrap.
Thank you so much. I know
Thank you,
you're
Todd.
short on
Yeah.
time,
Oh,
and
thank you for having
so
me.
we accommodated for you. So hopefully that we're really thankful that you came on.
Oh no, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's a
All
pleasure.
right.
My pleasure.
Well, anyways, that's our episode for the week, and we just thank you for tuning in. If you're feeling good, you can come in and leave a comment. You can subscribe. If you subscribe, hit that little notification bell.
Hit that bell.
And we also have some social media platforms that you can connect with us on. We have Twitter at PodcastCOJ. Our Instagram handle is Circle of Jerks Podcast. And Todd, is there any way that you are you into the social media stuff?
I'm not.
Okay, all right.
Do you
good.
want to get followers? 'Cause
Yeah.
that's the question.
Well,
No social media.
Ninjas
Todd doesn't want to be
ninjas don't
followed by
use
anybody.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Just hit us up if you have questions for Todd.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Right,
absolutely.
double ninja kick.
Yeah, right.
We'll tie it to the Raven's leg and send it.
All right. Well, thanks again, Todd, and
pleasure.
we'll
Thanks
see
for
you
having
guys next time.
Next episode. Peace.
Deuces.
Cue the music.
Thanks, man.
Hey, thank you. And there's so much to talk about. We could just go on forever.
Yeah.